Coming up on today's Airborne, AOPA to replace summits with town hall fly-ins. A historic transatlantic balloon flight gets airborne. And Cessna celebrates the first international TTx delivery. Welcome to Airborne, I'm Ashley Hale. Saying that it no longer makes sense for the organization and its members to invest in a single large event, AOPA has decided to end its annual Aviation Summits. The Aviation Summit in Fort Worth, Texas, from October 10th through the 12th in 2013 will be held as planned. But in 2014, AOPA will instead host a series of enhanced pilot town halls and fly-ins. Mark Baker, AOPA's new president and CEO, said, quote, "This decision is about going out to where our members are, maximizing the number of pilots that we reach on an annual basis. And it will also give me a real opportunity to spend quality time with members and seek their honest feedback in a more comfortable and relaxed setting." End quote. AOPA says that more details about next year's pilot town halls and fly-ins, as well as activities around AOPA's 75th anniversary year, will be released as they become available. Look up Europe, here he comes. Like retired balloon salesman Carl Fredricksen in the Disney animated movie Up, IT consultant Jonathan Trappe is living his childhood dream. Instead of flying his house under a cluster of balloons to Paradise Falls in Venezuela, Trappe is flying a dinghy, and his goal is anywhere on the continent of Europe. Trappe launched his remarkable aircraft, a 3,000 cubic meter cluster of 365 individual helium balloons, early Thursday morning from Caribou, Maine. Weather delayed the launch from an originally planned departure late Wednesday afternoon. If successful, the flight will be the first crossing of the Atlantic by cluster balloon. Indeed, it's the first attempt to ever do so. Trappe is being assisted by two key players from Felix Baumgartner's successful Red Bull Stratus record-breaking skydive from the stratosphere last October. Don Day is Trappe's meteorologist, while Colonel Joe Kittinger is a member of the flight control team. Almost 29 years to the day, Kittinger on September 14, 1984, launched his own successful first solo crossing of the Atlantic by gas balloon from Caribou. His journey ended 4 days later with a landing in Italy. Trappe's crossing is expected to take 3 to 6 days. Cessna Aircraft Company is celebrating the first international delivery of the new Cessna TTx to a customer in Thailand. The managing director of Kiattana Transport accepted his aircraft in a handover ceremony in Independence, Kansas. The TTx is a high-performance composite aircraft designed for advanced pilots. With progressive technology, luxury interiors, and performance resembling that of a jet. The TTx was certified in July and enters the global marketplace as Cessna's all-composite aircraft designed specifically for comfort, speed, and luxury. Commercial space company Blue Origin has filed a formal bid protest with the Government Accountability Office to prevent NASA from awarding an exclusive lease for any company to have the use of Launch Pad 39A at the Kennedy Space Center. NASA has not announced a lease partner for the retired launch complex, but it is widely rumored that SpaceX has the inside track for the use of the pad that launched Apollo and shuttle missions into orbit. NASA spokesman David Weaver said that the agency was following a selection process that is open and fair, which will ensure the best value for the taxpayers. Florida Today reports that 5 U.S. senators have written to NASA Administrator Charles Bolden to say that the use of the asset should not be limited to a single company. Among those signing the letter was Patty Murray, a senator from Washington State, where Blue Origin, founded by Amazon.com's Jeff Bezos, is based. Expedition 36 crew members Chris Cassidy of NASA and Pavel Vinogradov and Alexander Masurkin of the Russian Federal Space Agency have returned to Earth from the International Space Station. landing safely in Kazakhstan at 10:58 p.m. Eastern Time on Tuesday. The trio spent 166 days in space, completed 2,656 orbits of the Earth, and traveled more than 70 million miles, all while working on hundreds of research experiments and science investigations that will have benefits for future human spaceflight and life on Earth. Vinogradov has now logged 547 days in space on 3 spaceflights. This puts him 10th on the all-time endurance list. You're watching Airborne, more in a moment.
Since the early days of powered flight, pilots have struggled with landing in crosswinds and learning proper crosswind landing techniques. Even today, most crosswind landing skills are learned through trial and error, sometimes with disastrous results. Believe it or not, the most common contributing factor in weather-related accidents each year is crosswinds. The second most common factor is wind gusts. In fact, crosswinds and wind gusts cause more landing accidents than fog, thunderstorms, and icing combined. That's where the Redbird X-Wind SE comes in. It teaches pilots the proper techniques to meet and beat these top 2 causes of weather-related landing accidents. By placing pilots in gusty crosswind conditions for extended periods of time, the X-Wind SE gives instructors all the time they need to teach the pilot the proper techniques for landing in challenging crosswind conditions. For more information on Redbird flight simulations, the Redbird X-Wind SE, and Redbird's entire line of flight training devices, visit www.redbirdflightsimulations.com.
Welcome back. If you'd like to suggest a story for Airborne, Aero-TV, our website, or our podcast, drop us an email to news-by@aero-news.net. An antique Cessna T50 that has been missing since Labor Day was discovered Sunday morning in a field in Hartford Township in Susquehanna County, Pennsylvania. The Bobcat was thought to be one belonging to Tom and Elaine Huff, who have been missing for the same period of time. The 2 bodies were still inside the wreckage when it was discovered Sunday morning. The person who owns the property where the plane was found said she remembered hearing a plane overhead Monday that sounded like it was in trouble and then heard a crash. She told family members Tuesday about what she had heard, but no one knew there was an airplane missing. Investigators said there were thunderstorms in the area where the plane went down on Monday. It's the site of the Wright brothers' first airplane factory, which was opened in 1910. And at its busiest, it produced 4 airplanes per month. It will soon become an important piece of Ohio history. That's because the Ohio Water Development Authority has approved a $350,000 loan for the environmental remediation of the Dayton Aviation Heritage property. Last year, the Ohio Development Services Agency made a grant in the amount of $3 million from the Clean Ohio Fund to begin cleaning up the property, according to a report in the Dayton Business Journal. That money was earmarked for demolition, asbestos abatement, and soil cleanup. The new remediation funds will not only preserve the property, but will allow the property to be used for industrial and commercial concerns, as well as green space. Forget those $200 hammers and $600 toilet seats. The Air Force has fixed a $14,000 problem with a $20 part. It all happened at the 12th Flying Training Wing, where maintenance personnel replaced 13 T38 Multifunction Displays to the tune of $14,000 each last year. The MFD's display glass were being broken by ankle restraints in the new ejection seats during pre- and post-flight operations. Since the installation of new ejection seats across the T38C fleet is only 80% complete, the number of damaged MFDs was expected to climb even higher. Existing metal covers weren't working. To solve the problem, Ross Mills, the T38 production supervisor, came up with the idea for fabric covers. They use industrial foam, the same fabric as automotive convertible tops, take 45 minutes to make, and cost, including parts and labor, only $20. The covers protect the glass MFD screens from the ejection seat ankle restraints, as well as all hazards during ground operations. They are taking off during the flight and look similar to a cover for a computer tablet, and figured to save the wing $182,000 a year in broken MFDs. Earlier, we reported AOPA's decision to end its annual Aviation Summits. New President and CEO Mark Baker says the decision will allow him to get out and about to meet and talk to new members. Not surprisingly, ANN's editor-in-chief Jim Campbell has his own advice for Mr. Baker. Here's Barnstorming.
Thanks, Ashley, and hi, folks. Well, the deed is done. Mark Baker is now the head of AOPA, and Craig Fuller is headed off into the sunset while in the process of apparently lining himself up a bunch of consulting gigs. I guess that's the way of Washington, so we should have expected that particular state of affairs. But the problem right now is that very little is known about Mark Baker. None of us have been allowed to talk to him. We've been told maybe next week we'll get a chance to chat with him. Actually, not next week, but the week thereafter. He's supposedly, at this point, getting briefed and settled into his position. Well, we've got a couple of questions we'd like to ask before we get a chance to talk to him. Maybe give him something to think about before, well, we finally get a chance to chat. So, Mr. Baker, welcome to the industry. We have great hopes for you. We hope the best for you. But let's face it, starting out with such a lack of transparency, such a lack of interfacing with the industry, and coming out of supposedly nowhere at this point, well, it doesn't really inspire a lot of confidence in the process. Couple questions. One, have you talked to Phil Boyer? I can't possibly believe that with everything going into this, that one of the first things you do to prep yourself, even before taking the job, is to talk to the person with the most time in grade in that position, and arguably the most successful presidency in AOPA in recent memory. And if you haven't talked to Phil, why not? What do you think about the possibility of building a more transparent organization out of AOPA? It's become downright secretive. It's become downright nasty when you question them about things. They don't want to answer questions. They certainly don't want to be questioned. And the fact of the matter is, as a membership association, should there be any barriers between what people want to know and what the organization is willing to say? What do you think about an organization that victimizes or competes with its own membership? Why should AOPA go into business against a ForeFlight, a Wing X, some of the insurance companies in the business, some of the media companies in the business? Why should it copy what everybody else is doing when in fact there were people doing a pretty damn good job of it already? Wouldn't you think that resources would have been better directed at just simply building up services for the members or activities for the members, i.e., why finance Seattle Avionics to build you a new flight planning system, offer them hundreds of thousands of dollars in a credit line to the exclusion of all else without a bidding process that would have allowed other people to get involved? Why? What's with that? And finally, why is AOPA so willing to play nice with the FAA? If anything has been demonstrated this year, it's the fact that the FAA doesn't give a rat's ass about GA. It has victimized it. It has plundered it. It has lied to it. It has broken faith with it. And it's time for sterner measures. Is AOPA going to make nice with the FAA, or is it going to hold it accountable? Now, mind you, I've got lots of other questions, but a limited amount of time here. I'd like to hear what you think. Do me a favor. jim@aero-news.net. That's aero-news.net. jim@aero-news.net. Send me your questions so that when I talk to Mark Baker, he'll be hearing your questions, not just ours, and hear from an industry that's anxious to see good leadership come into play. We'll see. For the Aero-News Network, Airborne and Aero-TV, I'm Jim Campbell, raising a fuss as always.
Hassan Syed, who recently had his luggage misplaced on a trip from Chicago to Paris on British Airways, was not satisfied with the airline's handling of the incident. To make his dissatisfaction public, Syed, who tweets under the name @HVSVN, spent $1,000 to buy a tweet through Twitter's self-service ad platform. Fox News reports that he pushed out a message to the airline's 300,000 followers saying, "Don't fly at British Airways." Thanks to retweets, Syed said he got some 76,000 impressions for his $1,000 purchase. and later tweeted, "I win." British Airways apologized for the inconvenience caused and later delivered Syed's bag. Well, that's our program for September 13th. Remember, you can get comprehensive, real-time, 24/7 coverage of the latest aviation and aerospace stories anytime at aero-news.net. And please remember, Airborne is streamed twice weekly and is always online. Join us again every Tuesday and Friday for a new edition of Airborne. I'm Ashley Hale. Thanks for watching.